Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues, listeners, and anybody who's tuning in for the first time. As always, we try and bring some high profile and very interesting guests on board, and today is no exception. We've got Gabriella Somerville, who's the founder of ConnectJets. Gabriella, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and delighted to be here.
And a beautiful background there, eh? Lovely and green.
It is a very, very green background, I have to say. Yeah, very sustainable.
Beautiful, beautiful. Gabriella, what we'd like to do firstly is just for the listeners, if you can just give us a little bit of background as to how you came to be in the business and a little bit about your origins and where you learnt your craft.
Okay, craft, I like that. Yeah, I started in aviation. If we think about where this passion came from, is when I was younger. And my father took me to a lot of air shows. My uncle was Squadron Leader of the Red Airways at that time.
Oh!
Yeah, Mr. Roy Somerville, name drop there.
Yeah, very good, yeah.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of my formative years, my father, at these air shows and around, obviously, aircraft and all various aircraft, mainly at Biggin Hill, actually. So that's where that kind of incubated period started, where I was sort of induced into this world of aviation, and that sort of carried on. And then I sort of, just prior to becoming an air stewardess, I kind of was traveling the world a bit, so I had that zest for travel, and then came back, and it was the wonderful days of Virgin Atlantic, British Islands Airways, and I joined British Islands Airways, which a lot of maybe the viewers won't actually remember. They were an airline owned by an Italian gentleman, and we had the old back 111, so that's going back some time, which was then known, I think they called it the MG of the skies. And so I then was with British Islands Airways for about 6 months, and then Virgin Atlantic was my big step into the world of long haul, and probably the world of entrepreneurship, and Virgin, as we know at the time, broke the mold. It was out of the ordinary, and it was great to be part of that team. And actually, if I reflect back on my career, I'd say those 7 years were definitely the highlight. And I have very, very fond memories of those 7 years traveling. And I was very lucky. I was a crew for most of that period. Towards the end of my term with Virgin, I was on the promotional team, so that was great. I got to go to Los Angeles and go to all the inaugural trips with Richard Branson and the team, and go on all the promotional events en route to San Francisco, LAX. So they were very, very fun days. And then I realized that I needed to make a career. I was now about 27, so I decided to then go into British Airways, which I knew had lots more scope for. It was at Virgin then, it was dead men's shoes, really. It was people stayed, which was great, but the opportunities were less. So it was a strategic career move to British Airways, and then I was very lucky there. I sort of moved through different positions: cabin crew, special services, product, customer service, fleet coordinator, and finally I was, at the end I was director of cabin crew at Gatwick. So yeah.
Fantastic.
Well,
I just got to say, when you were doing Virgin, I used to fly a lot on Virgin then, and they had the incredible lounges, but they also did the massage on in flight.
Yes, they did. They had the manicure. Well, they had the beauty therapist. So we used to do massages. They did do manicures at one point, but then that became a sort of problem. So it went on to purely being sort of the massager, and it was great. And that was the sort of thing with Virgin. They thought outside the box, and whereas we're looking at now in commercial aviation having a slight reset, I think Virgin back in those days had a complete reset the way that we thought about travel. And just prior to when I joined them, and I was one of the former Virgin girls, that they had the butler service. And of course they had the old 747-100s, 200s with the old lift mechanism that went downstairs to the galley, which is a horrible position because you were stuck down 8 hours, hardly any oxygen in a very small confined area cooking meals. But yeah, I mean, the whole experience was great. Yeah, really good.
It's incredible. I remember I was going to Boston, and a friend of mine, and I wanted to carry on working and he wanted to sleep. So we booked an invigorating and a relaxing massage each. So I was sitting there and I was still working. He was first and he went away. And he came back after about 15, 20 minutes and he looked like the nutty professor from Back to the Future. He was absolutely, I thought, my God, what have they done here? But it was incredible, incredible service.
Yeah, actually, that's funny. You saying that, it's just brought back a few memories. I do remember sort of men sort of going around afterwards and, you know, with their hair sort of sticking up and looking very chilled and very relaxed and very happy with the world, but with not a great hairdo.
Yeah, no, it was amazing, but incredible service. Now, as far as, like, so we've got you there now to British Airways, and you also then work with VistaJet and Bombardier. But when you were working with Virgin and British Island and British Airways, what would you say was the biggest motivator or the seed that was sown to make you then want to go on and do something for yourself? And who would have been responsible, you know, as far as a mentor or somebody that actually spent some time with you and that was the catalyst of change?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously I was with three very different airlines. So British Island Airways, BA and Virgin were all completely had their own DNA. So, and I think at Virgin, I'd say that real entrepreneurial spirit came. And I remember thinking many times, because I watched Richard a lot. He was on a lot of our flights. He used to come up to the upper deck. He used to sort of sit on the bar box outside or opposite and just sort of say with a pad, Gabriella, you know, you're serving all these customers, you know best. What is it they're looking for? What is it they want? And so he engaged with the shop floor work, if you use that term. He was very clever. He had the art of communication, and he would always call you by your first name. So that always made you feel special. It made you feel that you were, you know, he remembered you. Yeah. And so it was a very personal sort of one-to-one with a boss in a way, in a sense that he sort of really encouraged you to bring your ideas to the forefront. And I think that was when I sort of started to think, actually, when he allowed me to do that, there were lots of things that started coming up, and I started this kind of blue sky thinking in so many areas, and suddenly I had an appetite for thinking about how we could do things differently, what we could do. And to be fair, with Virgin, I was in there from pretty much the formative days, and for lots of people, they won't recognise this when I'm saying what I'm saying is, but these were days when you used to check in at Gatwick. I think it was at the Beehive we were at, but you know, it was all on paper. It was somebody just behind the desk ticking you off. Gabriella, you're in, you know, uniforms on. We used to have a uniform check. There was it really was the sort of on the back of a cigarette packet, but obviously it's matured to a wonderful airline now. But so I was in the very embryonic stage of that. So that's really was a real blessing, because I think that is where I sort of sensed that I could see how you build an airline. I could see how you can make mistakes, the things that we did right, the things we did wrong, the kind of organic growth at the beginning, starting just with Newark and then you know, expanding to 3 routes. So that was really firsthand, and everything we were doing was sort of completely, it was innovative and it was new. So that sort of gave me an appetite. So I think that was it. So in one sense, I say Richard Branson was a mentor, not a direct mentor, but just being around him a lot. Obviously that kind of rubs off, right? You see somebody, and Richard was really good, because when we did the inaugural to Los Angeles, we had Jacqueline Bissett on, Jane Seymour, David Soul, Mike Harwood. Yeah, we had what's his name, Robert Powell, who I remember going up to saying, I remember Jesus. I said that. I said, Jesus is on the flight. We'll be all right.
We're all safe and sound, yeah.
So we had, and then we used, I mean, this is the funny days. We used to have, like, I think we had the B-52s. We had a live band on board. Can you imagine that? And a piece of it. And they were playing like B-52s. And we had models doing the catwalk around the aisles. Listen, they were heady, fun days, but Richard was good at one thing, telling stories. Yeah. And to have a business, you need to narrate a story. Correct. And you have to have a very strong marketing PR capability, and you have to listen to your passengers, and you have to unite with them. You cannot be the distance. I think if I was to compare the two, I would say what I learned from British Airways, I felt there was a greater distance between them, the staff and their customers. But Virgin, Richard was very much there. he was engaged, and that's why I think we're seeing such commitment from him now in terms of rescuing Virgin, because his commitment to that has been absolutely huge.
Yeah, I think yeah, I mean, just on that subject, and I'm not a great lover of all the negativity and the spin that media is able to, you know, to place and get people thinking in the wrong way. I think nobody should be ashamed of success, and the more successful people we've got, the more they then need people to work for them, which is helpful for everybody. But this issue about, you know, him trying to do it and his own personal wealth and all those sort of things, it gets very muddied, I think, and too many people don't really know what to think. But the more successful people we've got now moving forward, the more opportunities there's going to be for everybody else to have jobs. So,
and at the end of the day, you're absolutely right, and they create jobs, right?
Yeah, I'm all for success, and nobody should be ashamed of that.
The most important thing.
Now, one of the things that successful people do is and you mentioned it a little bit earlier, which is about being able to learn and not having the fear of failure. And, you know, everybody sees or they read a name, overnight success, but what they don't see is the amount of overnight worries and overnight nightmares and overnight failures that people have to get through to get to that overnight success. And I think any environment where you're allowed to fail early but learn quicker is very, very positive. And I think in some ways that's been taken away from so many people, which restricts them from moving forward.
Yeah, I say failure is a necessity in business. You have to know the bottom and you have to know the top, because you know, we all know life can throw all sorts of curveballs at you, and you have to adapt very quickly to that. And listen, we're in an industry that has great volatility. There's no surplus written in aviation at all. We've had a lot of battles over the years, and the most recent one as well is the environment. And so there's the failure is, I think, listen, I've been at the bottom, I'd say probably twice, and in a vortex. And you have to really you have to keep your cool, you have to keep calm, you have to really try and allow yourself not to go into panic mode, and just try and look at the broader picture, and then remain flexible, adapt quickly. I think I could write a book on the things that I failed to do the first time when I was in that vortex, because you procrastinate in that bit, because we all believe that it will get better. And so you keep contracts, you keep certain things that you're committed to. Whereas I think there are lots of things, and this again in the media recently has been probably criticised, but it's very difficult when you're a CEO or a business leader, that there are decisions and choices that you have to make to survive. You have to prune. That's just a necessity. It's not very nice. It's a bit ugly at the time, but it's the only way that you can sort of forge ahead and keep the company, companies solvent. I think most airline companies have danced with insolvency at some point. We would dance with many things in our lives, and if you're a business owner, you would dance probably with that. You would dance with debt. So I think the key thing is just to keep calm, carry on as much as you can. But also I say to people, actually, I was speaking at the IID a couple of years ago, and I said to a group of entrepreneurs, don't be too worried. If it looks ahead that you're not, that the particular model or plan you have cannot succeed, and I mean that because sometimes you have to actually close something, and that's a very hard decision. Success is actually facing a degree of reality. And I don't mean that I'm a woman, I hope I've got a lot of faith, and I do have that, and that's is something, and hope. But I think there are times when you have to say this is the end, and there's times where you have to fight for survival. And that's the key, is when you know when to stop and when to keep going. And that's a hard one, I think.
And it's very difficult, but like you said, it's a necessity. And whilst people are now getting criticised for whether or not they've got to lay people off, if you're reducing fleets and people don't appreciate, how many numbers of crews, etc., are involved in every aircraft, and then all the people that support that, if you're reducing, you've got to lay people off, which is a terrible thing, because for somebody to lose their sustainable means of living and the people that rely on them, it's a terrible thing, especially in this particular circumstance, which is through no fault of their own. But if it's not done, there's going to be even more victims or even more people affected. So sometimes the harder decision earlier is better than dragging it along.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is, you know, these guys are having to make really tough decisions right now. We're in, you know, and this word has been probably overused, unprecedented waters, you know, and so there are things that are, and this is the hardest thing for a brand, because I think for the big brands, we look at Richard Branson and certain other ones that have been in the papers recently. It's a hard walk, because a brand is a religion in a sense, and people want it to look and be one way, and they don't want the bad news, and they don't want to, you know, and I think the media sometimes, and I think they do an injustice to certain elements of that, and they drive it into a corner where it looks a lot uglier than it needs to be. I mean, look, as a CEO, the key thing is as well, I think, for Richard and the others, I think he recovered quite well, because I saw his Instagram post afterwards, and he was then you know, and that's the leader that's kind of clever, realizing actually that their narrative has to change, the way they communicate what they're having to do. So there's a salvation in it, but you just have to be very careful with your message at that time, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And like I say, even more so now, because, you know, everybody's in different boats, but we're all sailing through the same storm. And what you said earlier about the story, it's so important, because even a bad story or a sad story, if it's logical and people remember how it got there and what could have been done, should have been done, etc., that's what helps people understand the whole thing. And one of the things that we're trying to do on this show is bring out the realities of business. And we started off by looking at the person behind the position, so people could start to see the types of characters that were leading the industry and be inspired or you know, want to come into the industry. We still want people to come into the industry now, because it's a great industry, but it's also now a little bit more important to see the characters and the fight and the you know, the way that they respond to such crisis, because as you said earlier, this industry of ours has gone through so many storms. Now this storyline, and with COVID, you know, people are sort of coming on the same storyline to a chapter, and then it's like one of these chapters that you can almost write yourself. So you can either go with a heroine, you can go with the villain, you can go with a love story, you can go with the financial, whatever. You can almost write the direction as a leader of a business. So the sustainability and continuity, cash flow, all those key areas now that probably weren't as focused as they should have been in the past, have to be now. Okay, so now your storyline, as you left all of those well-established organizations, and then suddenly one morning you woke up and you thought to yourself, right, ConnectJets. What was it that inspired you to do that?
To start ConnectJets.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh wow. That actually, it's a funny thing, really. I think it was a number of factors, which in life there normally are, whether it's marriage or starting a business. There's lots of things that play. I think I had a chalet in the Alps at the time that I had just
like you do.
Yeah, like you do. Yeah, well, one of my an investment, should I say, the one investment, and I had a buyer come along and said they wanted to buy the chalet, and it was a very good deal, and the euro was parity almost the pound at that time. So there I have this lump sum of cash, which is good, right? So then you think, well, shall I invest it? At the time I was with VistaJet, and I had done quite well on the aircraft sales side through selling the programs. And so, and just many other things came together. And it's a bit like the Nike, just do it. And it had been on my mind, to be fair, for about 3 years prior to that. I actually bought ConnectJets, funny enough, the name, about 4 years before. So it just been sitting there, because I'd always had this vision that it was either going to be an airline or, you know, a brokerage, and then so I had the money. I was at a certain age where I think you feel if I'm not going to do it now, then it may be too late. So we're not in late in terms of just the drive that you need for the initial startup is huge. And I always say that starting a business is not a romance. It requires a huge amount of effort and commitment, more than I ever really assumed at the beginning. So all those things sort of came together, and I thought, right, let's just do it. I'd obviously had quite a lot of experience in the commercial sector, in the private sector. I'd had experience in aircraft sales and charter, and so we launched in 2009, which was yeah.
And then within a couple of years, multi-million business.
Yeah, we were. I think part of the beginning is timing. I don't like to use the word luck because I think it's I don't like that word at all. But I do think that timing is important, and I do think in life there's two things. I think timing and your gut sense, and I think my gut, I felt it was the right time to start. Timing wise, people would say actually it was probably, why would you start in 2009 at the very brink of when we had the downturn. But I've always seen, and maybe this is the this is just a way I outlook on life, but I always see opportunity in challenging times, and that was really what I saw. So an opportunity where there were distressed fractions, where there were distressed aircraft sales, where people were looking to adapt new models. So it was really the Virgin sort of thing, adapting to the climate, to the greenhouse that you're in, and sort of thinking, right now, how can we diversify? What can we do? And also everyone was reducing their budgets at that time. And of course we came in with quite a healthy budget and a marketing budget. And so we were able to sort of really work on that. And we were, timing wise, we got a great client. So they were one of the clients that we had that helped us to get to that point. And for that, I'm grateful.
Oh, brilliant. And you've also now got Connect Skies.
Yeah, Connect Skies is really exciting. It's quite funny, actually. Last year, I spent some time in hospital, and I said to everybody where they're feeling sorry for me, I said, please don't, because I get fed 3 times a day, brought to my bed. Some lovely doctors, but it gives you a lot of thinking time. So I was lying on my back, and I was I'd sort of thought about Connect Skies before, and wasn't quite sure where we'd go with it. And then it just all started to that creative, and that's the other thing I would say about being an entrepreneur, is make sure you have time for your mind to be free, to be creative, because the problem with running a business is you're consistently trying to catch up, especially in a day of emails, WhatsApp, social media. These things don't give us a break, and what we really miss is that capability to have a period of time out and just allow our minds to go back into the creative force, if you like. And that's exactly what happened. So Connect Skies was really born, or the kind of the way that it's going to be was during that time. So Connect Skies is really, we want to be spearheading the sort of decarbonisation of the skies, which, I mean, good old aviation's had a few knocks. It had the environment just before COVID, and then it had COVID. So now these are two opportunities as well, and I use that in the best sense of that word, because there are opportunities, and that's where an entrepreneur always looks. And everything like this, there will be opportunities. It's those opportunities that we saw. And I'd obviously been working with the Piaget Avanti as a sales agent for the company for 6 years. So I was well versed with working with an aircraft that is known as probably one of the most sustainable at the current time in the aviation sector. So I had embraced a lot of clients that chose the Avanti because of its environmental qualities. And so that sort of was the precursor in a way to starting Connect Skies. And I realized that, again, listening to your clients, they start telling you what they're looking for. And then looking at the change in narrative in the world, that actually, the naming and shaming of clients on private jets, and as we saw by the media, I thought actually the other thing that we want to do at Connect Skies is really actually present a strong voice out there about what our industry is doing in terms of environmental, technologies, the way that we're moving forward, the reduced, fuel burn and loss of new jet aircraft, and also, sustainable aircraft fuel. So very little of this is mentioned. And I think as an industry, and this isn't a criticism, it's just a bit of feedback, that we probably need to be a lot better at presenting ourselves as the rich man getting in with the Bentley into a car. And I love Bentley, don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is that, again, our narrative has to change, and we have to be seen as as an industry that is making great strides and steps to, come to the to zero emissions, to decarbonize the skies. We're investing in it heavily. EBAA, and many other bodies are working hard. The FBOs are working hard at looking at how we can be more sustainable. Sustainable aircraft fuel is going to be in at Luton hopefully soon. So, you know, we're hoping that Connect Skies will be the spearhead of, you know, sustainability within the private aviation sector. And so we're looking at working with particular aircraft, the current aircraft that are on market that have a very fuel efficient, and then we're looking at future technologies. So we're working with some eVTOL operators, the electric aircraft. And that was another thing that I've seen, is that there's a lot, you know, knowledge is power. And we cannot assume that the rest of the world knows or understands what we're doing. So I think what I want Connect Skies to be as well is a voice to say, this is what we're working towards. This is, I mean, it's great innovation. I mean, if we're looking post-COVID, the sustainability side in electric and hydrogen is going to be a completely huge sector. I mean, it's going to be massive. So I think what we need to do is really sort of present that with a very solid case behind it. And then Connect Skies, the actual website, will launch in 2 weeks. And that will cover aircraft sales. It will also cover options on, and this will be for all sustainable aircraft, or those aircraft that we have selected, which we believe fit within that criteria, charter, and then working with the eVTOLs. And at the same time, you know, looking at the various other things that aviation are doing. So we're hoping to do a lot of sort of video content, driving that content through, so that you know, people can really fully understand about us as an industry and what we're looking to achieve. So I'm quite excited about that.
Yeah, no, I think it's excellent. And what you said earlier about the misperception and you know, negative news. I mean, somebody, I can't remember who it was, they were telling me that, you know, if people have got their own private jet, and from a corporation perspective, some of their executives can save between 35 and 45 days a year. Now, people don't think that's a lot, but when you think of the impact that somebody at that level can have for that amount of days, and either the money that can be generated, saved, or invested, or whatever, it's phenomenal. But nobody hears that side of the story, and they don't hear the fact that, you know, they can do 11, 12-hour day, they can continue meetings on the aircraft, they've got total you know, confidentiality there because there's no one sitting around, and even in the fanciest of first class cabins, you've still got lots of people around you, so there's certain things that can't be said. So there's so many positives that I genuinely agree. I think some of these sort of hidden worlds that the majority of the public think are something special, they could and should realize how difficult it is to stay in that sphere, and how difficult it is to be successful there, and maybe a little bit of more positive promotion and PR, you know, would make people be a little bit more wiser, and also stop these journalists who ask the most ridiculous of questions, even in this COVID world that we're living in now. So with that, oh, sorry, Gabriella.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see hashtag aviation is the solution, not the problem. Aviation has to continue. So no matter how much you know, bad press we get, you know, it's not going to be a happier world if we stop aviation. No. So aviation is not the problem, right? So we need to then think, right, well, the solution is all of us working together to create cleaner skies, and that is achievable. And of course, it is achievable. You know, we've got all sorts of technical developments, fuel developments. So this is going to change very shortly. So I think the press need to absolutely work with us and support us. And actually, I mean, the sad thing with the press and the way I think the way that it's sort of been going the last few years is they tend to like the bad stories, which is really not good. Number one, for mental health, but also it's not good for industry and industry sectors like ours. So I think we have to get quite vocal in one sense with them, and really, you know, work at getting that voice across, that actually, yes, you know, because also, you know, if you look at the aviation sector, the jobs, I mean, if we look at the number of jobs that are going right now, I mean, say to me, I hadn't realized, you know, what a huge sector it was. It creates, you know, jobs, As you said, the people at the top, I've got clients, if they didn't have their private jet, they work in the emerging markets. Those emerging markets wouldn't have accessibility to medicines, to vital elements that support their life. So, you know, we've got to get out this narrow kind of vision and expand it. And hopefully, hopefully we can do that. We've got great opportunities. And hopefully during this time where we are seeing an increase in business aviation, because of COVID-19, of course, people want autonomy over that, over their flight. And there are many elements that business aviation bring that consumer confidence back. So I think this will give us a chance right now to have that window to be able to speak up.
Yeah, 100%. And also it'd be nice if somebody started to produce at least a proportion of their tabloid news as a positive rather than all this negativity, because it's almost like a perverted make yourself feel better by knowing that somebody else is having a bad time, you know, instead of being appreciative with other people's success or largesse or just nice charitable things that they do, or you know, feel good things. And there's so much of that around, but it doesn't get reported, you know, and those are the ones that make you smile or make you cry rather than make you feel mad with the bad stuff that's coming out, you know. But who knows, there's always a
and actually on that note, I think, you know, I just like to say, I think the young people have been so brilliant through COVID-19, absolutely brilliant. And I think for the young people of today, we need to change this tone, because otherwise at the moment, I remember journalism 20 years ago and it was never as negative as this. You used to have the good stories and it was very balanced. Journalism now has become very, I don't know, something's gone really wrong at the top there. And that seems to be like a personal sort of vendetta. And when you look at some of the people interviewing, I won't mention any, but you feel. So I think, and aviation is a growing industry and is one that we need to get the millennials and the youth into. And we need to have a positive message for these people that are, you know, I know 24, 25-year-olds that are without a job now. We need to really start preaching that good news. Otherwise, it's going to be detrimental to all of us.
100%. Now, part of that good news, and especially for the private aviation sector, is the restrictions and the complexities of airports, government, countries, cross-border agreements, etc. All those things are making it difficult for, and I'm really getting fed up with this new normal term, because nobody actually knows what a new normal is. So what they're trying to do to adjust to get somewhere where they can then suggest that they're hitting a normal of some kind, it's very difficult. But for private aviation, there's an awful lot of opportunity now, isn't there? And there's also the opportunity for people to support the social distancing, the hygiene issues, the convenience, less crowds, etc. So people who do have the capacity for private aviation, they seem to be turning on to that now.
Absolutely. I mean, I've got a lot of clients that probably flew both on commercial and private. So use private just for their family holidays, and then commercial for the business trips. And now you've got that client base that's sat in between, now directly moving to business aviation 100%. And we've also got a new market out there. So we've got new clients coming to us that haven't flown privately before that now want to make this as an option. So we've got a great opportunity, as I say, to go and preach to the many about what we can provide. So, and as an industry, again, we can be very innovative in terms of, I went to Biggin Hill the other day, they had a temperature thermometer there. So we are setting standards and saying, actually, we're taking this seriously. I don't believe COVID's going to go away too quickly.
Definitely not.
So I think we have to look at this in sadly in the short, medium, and maybe even long term. And the way that I think the brain works as well, we have a kind of neuro association with things. So now we've got used to social distancing. Somebody coming into that private space, no matter what it is, isn't going to be comfortable. So private aviation definitely presents that capability for you to sit on an aircraft where you can create your own social distancing as you feel comfortable. You've obviously got the clean air filtration going through in and out. You've got the lower pressurization, which I understand from the scientific point of view that COVID-19 doesn't fare well in a humid atmosphere. It fares better at a higher altitude when the air is thinner and colder. So you put all of these things together, and it's a great opportunity to bring new clients into the business aviation sector.
Yeah,
I think we will see exponential growth. Actually, it'll probably be slow to start with, But I think and there's a lot more, I think this will be an opportunity as well for a lot more solutions, so different solutions as to what we're currently doing. I also think the financing model, some of them are a bit onerous. We need to kind of challenge that thinking. So I think this is a time for business aviation to not back away in fear, just say, what are the opportunities here? How can we press reset? How can we be leaders, saying actually in the business aviation segment we have a standardization for COVID-19. I think that's really important, because you know, in every element, so the ecosystem, right from when they leave their house to where they're getting to, that we have a solution for them, and that we, you know, we can do that. You know, great thing with what we have. I remember Rich Branson says small is beautiful. Well, you know, we're not operating a lot on parts of jets. We're operating slightly smaller fleets. So great capability here to really have that flexibility and to make changes quite quickly and quite rapidly. So no, I think business aviation, we have suffered some pain, because obviously during the lockdown, there was a time when flying slowed down dramatically. But I think now in this window, we're seeing a really nice, according to WingX, I've been looking at Richard's graphs, and we're seeing, you know, really nice growth happening. And I think that will continue. So let's just look at the opportunities that we can provide.
Exactly. And you're also now based in central London, yeah?
I'm based in between London and Kent at the moment, so I've also got a little place near Biggin Hill. So I've been going or working out of there. Yes, I'm working between the two at the moment for personal reasons. But yes, so we're looking at for Connect Skies. We're looking at a great position, which is on the Thames. I can't say any more than that, and it's going to be quite unique. And we hopefully will have a tiny bit of a showroom, but that's as much as I can say there. But so a London look, no matter, I know people are moving out of London, and lots of people prophesying doom there. There's an energy in London, and it's a great city, and it will continue to be a great city, and hopefully we'll drive more of that, the international clientele in and out, you know, through Battersea Heliport, Farnborough, Luton, and Biggin Hill and the other airfields. So yeah. No,
brilliant. And as far as you said there, now that COVID's going to be with us for some time, and I believe in, you know, data-driven decision making. So when you look at all the different facts and figures and what people are doing from a financial perspective and a political perspective, businesses now have to open up to get some cash in. Now, if you want to put it in very simple storyline terms, it's so that they've got enough money to get through the second wave.
Yeah.
So as the Northern Hemisphere now will start going into winter, there's definitely going to be another big hit. The most important thing is that people take the positives out of the learning exercises from the initial one, because even the scientists weren't aware of the differences between the previous COVID series and this particular one. So what we do now is so important. And one of the things that we as human race, businesses, families, we've got to be prepared for rapid reboots, but also rapid contraction within everything we do without being thrown out by it. Now, have you and your organization, have you looked at, you know, what will happen if it comes again, and you've done your risk assessments and you've looked at the mitigation actions and, you know, all sorts of solutions?
Absolutely. I think I spent a lot of time thinking about that, and I think the key thing that we're seeing in the commercial sector is that the resilience funds have been particularly low, and also the management of costs, and actually also the pricing model, but that's another argument. But yeah, we certainly have to be an adaptable, a flexible model now, and we have to look at a market that will, as you say, expand and contract. So that is, I mean, it is a completely new roadmap, and nobody's got the answers completely. Of course, none of us will. Yep. The only thing that we can do is think ahead and look at worst case, best case scenario, adapt your business model to be able to weather the storm, and then, you know, keep going. There are, you know, opportunities to build in that time when it's contracting. The other thing that we did have through COVID during the lockdowns, you had a great audience, and for us and Zoom and even those conversations that sometimes that our clients were thinking about having, but their lives being so busy, we were able to talk about aircraft. We were able to talk about aviation solutions going forward, financing solutions, So give a lot more time. So time is a great commodity too. So I think it's you can still, you know, as the farmer said, the seed time and harvest, right? So just sow, harvest, sow, harvest. So don't stop sowing. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, no, because well, exactly. I've got all my family back in Ireland. They're all farmers, and that's one thing you learn very, very early. If you're not sowing, there's nothing you're going to get back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you know, look at, also I tend to look at what other leaders are doing. That's not because I'm going to copy them, but I think there's a lot of wisdom. Wisdom is good to be shared. So I'm not shy of listening to what other people are thinking about doing, or you know what certain leaders are doing and how they're adapting, how they're changing. We're all in this together. You know, it's not about the one and only business. We're all in here to create a strong economy, and we're all here for each other at the end of the day. And if we look at it like that, then you know, there's a lot to learn right now, an awful lot.
Yeah, exactly. And the learning, and that's one thing that that we're trying to push as well, is that when businesses do have to reduce the numbers of workers, it's probably for between a 2 to 4 year period before things in this business start to collect themselves again. And obviously once a vaccine, and there's a different mindset with regard to this particular virus. But once that's in place, it's so important to get people who've got experience back, or people who are learning the business. So for the youngsters now, you know, just going into a degree or looking at aviation, it's a fantastic time, because they've got 2 or 3 years, you know, to grow their minds into the minds that would be received well in the business. And for those who are out of it, if they're able to maintain some link to their previous companies or the industry through online training or whatever, just to maintain licensing or just an interest and a love of the business that they were in, you know, there's a very good chance that they'll be the first ones to be brought back.
Absolutely. And if we're looking at, you know, the electric, hydrogen, the future of aviation, there's going to be a lot of job creation here. Believe me, I mean, I was down at Vertical Aerospace just before COVID-19, and was incredibly impressed with their outfit down in Bristol. A lot of young people there, very excited. You know, this is something new. There's so many things that, you're right. I mean, it's looking like a 2 to 4 year period. But in that time, you know, the great innovators are going to have that time to be able to create a new roadmap, which wasn't a bad thing. Aviation needs a bit of a reset. Actually, to be fair, you know, I think the fares for far too long were too cheap, and we were filling the skies up. You can, you know, I mean, it's a strange thing when you can go to Rome cheaper than you can to Brighton. So I think, the whole aviation will have a paradigm shift. I don't know what that will completely look like, but my mind's playing with a few things at the moment of how we can be part of that shift. And I think that's what we have to do. Whatever we have to do, change is a constant in life. It has always been in my life. It doesn't, you know, it's one thing I know in the morning when I get up, change will be here. Challenges will be here. The constant is there. Just adapt, and just don't look at it as something like a dead end. Just look at it as like, okay, what is the way around this? Yeah,
100%. And always to think, no matter how good or bad today is, tomorrow can always be better.
Absolutely. Well, tomorrow, absolutely. Tomorrow's another day, and I think it's a good day. And I think if we look at the kind of philosophical side of all of this, we've all had time to relax. We've had time to rest. You know, the land's had a kind of Sabbath, if you like. We've all had a bit of a Sabbath, which, if you look at the speed just prior to COVID, I was on the train one day, everyone was on their mobiles, everyone was calling, and I just looked at people's brains, and there was just no sort of downtime that anybody was giving any of them, or even on the train in the morning, was having a quick glance out the window. So I think this is done. You see people walking out about. We've suddenly, it's not been such a negative thing. It has in many ways. I understand that, because there's been a huge loss of life, but in a positive way, if we can pull any positives out of this, I think we've learned a lot more about ourselves, other people, being more of a compassionate nation. So there's lots of really good things that I think we can take away from it. I know for me, I've managed to have a rest, which has been a great thing.
No, you're right. You're 100% right. And I think no matter what God or spirit or whatever anybody believes in, it's as if they all got together somewhere and said, look, we got to slow this lot down, because they're going a little bit crazy. And like you said, you know, people have lost their lives, and what a terrible thing. And also the frontline workers, the respect that they've got, justly so. one hopefully outcome will be that people won't forget, and that they'll realise that, you know, the simple values are good. Try and be as positive as possible, because it makes other people feel positive, which then makes you feel positive again. And do good to as many as you can.
Be kind.
Be kind, exactly.
And I'd say in this industry, we need to be kind to one another too.
Yeah, exactly. Because like I said, as I said earlier, might be in different boats, but we're all sailing through the same storm.
Absolutely.
Gabriella, it's been an absolute pleasure. I think with some of the things that you touched on very briefly, you should maybe write yourself a little book. and it would be a very interesting read. I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to you. And the topics and the subject matter, and also the depth of your experience and expertise is very obvious. Wishing you the very, very best of tomorrows. And I'm sure they'll be very successful.
Thank you. It's very nice. Thank you. And I enjoyed it. Thank you.
All the best. Thank you very much.